Good evening. Tonight I'm going to be talking about assistive technology. So, the role of assistive technology in the classroom is that it assists students with help them complete tasks. It allows active involvement, so that interactive classroom, and it really brings in that part of an inclusive classroom with assistive technology in the classroom. And one of the other pluses is that it helps a variety of learners, the way it accommodates to that. And then, like I said, one of the most positive things is that it allows students to be able to do tasks they wouldn't be able to do before. So these assistive technologies help all kinds of varieties of students from, with their disabilities or whatever they may need. Those needs are met by these assistive technology things in the classroom. And that's the main role of them in the classroom. They just allow students to be able to do tasks they wouldn't be able to do before. Personally, I have experienced a little bit of assistive technology. Being a parent and coach, I've seen, like right now, we have a girl in the fifth grade who has a prosthetic leg, which I'll talk about later as being one of the applications of assistive technology. And then also, I've coached for the last 2 years a middle school boy who has a limb missing, one arm. And there's some things we've had to do to differentiate the things he does. And I know that the school, especially in the physical education part, has had to use some assistive technology with him. So I'm going to talk about some of that later. And the thing I felt most applicable to me is the part about the physical education, like using inclusive things for students with disabilities, like, and then the mobility, because I've seen it and I'm a coach, and in the future I want to be a physical education teacher. But that's something that I felt was most interesting, just the different ways you can use that. And I could, finding ways to use that in, your PE type classroom or setting, how is that going to work? And it's interesting to learn how that will work and how some different teachers use it in their classroom. So there's 6 applications that were covered in the article, 6 applications of assistive technology, being like existence, mobility, communication, physical education, positioning, and environmental interaction. And I'm going to hit on 3 of those. And I'm going to start with physical education here. So basically, physical education is just based like with the adaptations to allow students with disabilities to be able to participate in a physical education type classroom setting. And one of the things I talked about was, earlier I talked about that student with a missing limb in the middle school that I coached for football. And one of the ways that I know the physical education teacher accommodated him was by in the archery section. Obviously, that would be a tough section for a person with a missing limb, especially missing his arm. And so they got him a stand. So then that takes away him like holding it, so he can be able to pull the string back, hold it into place, and shoot the bow. And so that's one of the ways, like the examples I'm using here is based off what I've seen and heard of. So then I'm going to hit on mobility, and that has to do with like focusing on a number of skills like walking, using the stairs, etc. And for example, that was not in the article. I talked about prosthetic legs because we have that fifth grade girl who has a prosthetic leg because she's missing her lower limbs, and one of her lower limbs, and so she used that prosthetic leg and she can get around just as easy, just like the other students. Last year I think she had a wheelchair, but now she has a prosthetic leg, and so her mobility, that's one of the ways of the assistive technology hits on mobility. So then I'm going to talk about communication. So both oral and written communication, as well as visual and auditory reception and social interaction. And for an example that wasn't in the article, I thought of and found was audiobooks. So like some learners, some readers, you know, are going to struggle with reading. Like, somebody who's dyslexic, they're going to need an audiobook, and those audiobooks help with that oral communication, or being able to read and decipher what's going on. So that's the one way you can accommodate. So once again, that hits on the assistive technology like goal of accommodating to students, and audiobooks are one way that you can accommodate to a student. And then the additional assistive technology I found was specialized one hand tools, and I felt like this was applicable applicable to me because of that middle school student that I coached in football. And so, there was the various things from those specialized one hand tools, like, helping him button shirts, putting shoes on. So, it have a lot to do with like his everyday things, but also I feel like some of those one hand tools could help him with like schoolwork, or, maybe there's some one hand tools he could use for different games or activities with physical education, and I mean, some of the ways, I mean, these aren't assistive technology, but some of the ways we had to accommodate to him was like, instead of doing push-ups, he would do sit-ups. And like there could be tools to help him do various things. And that's the main thing right there, is hitting his needs that with his disability and helping him accommodate and being able to do what everybody else, all the other students are able to do. So that's it. Thank you.